We can manage the amount of hard disk space that a user or a group can use with disk quotas. To set up a quota for a user, we first must make sure that we are doing this on a home directory that is mounted on a separate partition. We have a system here that has its home directory mounted on a separate disk. The first thing that we will need to do is edit the /etc/fstab file to add the user quota directive to our mount options on the home directory. Next, we remount the home partition. Now we check to make sure that our home directory has been mounted with the user quota option. And we can see that it has. Next, we will need to create a quota table file with the quota check command for our home directory. The -C option creates our new quota table files. The U option creates an aquota.user file, and the M option tells QuotaCheck to not try and remount our file system in read-only mode. Now, do an ls on our home directory. And here we see our aquota.user file. Now, we have our home directory set up for quotas, but we don't have any quotas set up on any users yet. We can view a user's quota table with the addQuota command. The U option specifies the username we wish to work on. And here we are presented with the quota table for the user K. Armstrong. Let's take a moment to go over this file. The alignment of our fields are a bit off considering that the file system here is quite long. The first field is obviously the file system that we have the quota set up on. The next field is the amount of blocks that are in use by the user. This field should not be edited. Next, we have the maximum amount of blocks that a user may take up on a file system before a warning is issued to the user. This number is known as the soft limit. Next, we have the maximum amount of blocks that a user may take up on a file system. This is the hard limit and cannot be exceeded. The next field is for the amount of inodes a user has on a file system. The inodes refer to the amount of entries in a directory. This value should not be edited. As before with the soft and hard limits for blocks, these next two fields refer to the soft and hard limits for the amount of inodes a user can have on a partition. A 0 in the place of any of the soft and hard limits means that there is no restriction set. The easiest way to modify the quota limits for a user is with the setQuota command. Let's set a quota for the K. Armstrong user. Here, we are setting the quota on K. Armstrong to have 30,000 blocks, or roughly 30 megabytes of space as a soft limit, and 35,000 blocks, or roughly 35 megabytes, for a hard limit in his home directory. The two zeros at the end means that we are not limiting the amount of files that the user can have, we are only limiting the amount of space he can use. Next, let's turn on quotas for the home directory. Now, let's log in as K. Armstrong to test our new quota. As the K. Armstrong user, we are going to create a test file of a specific size to test our quota settings. We will use the dd command, which is short for disk dump, to dump a bunch of zeros as data into a brand new file. We are using 1 kilobyte block sizes, and we are creating 25,000 of them to have a 25 megabyte file. Now run addQuota to see what our quota usage is. We can see that we have used up 25,000 extra blocks and we have increased our inode count by 1 since we just added a new file. Now, let's see what happens when we go over our limit. We will create another test file that will cause us to exceed the limit. Here, we see that we got a message that our quota was exceeded. We can also use the edQuota command to copy quota settings from one user to another. Rather than manually editing quota settings for G. Freeman, we will just copy the quota settings for K. Armstrong over to G. Freeman. The P option sets the K. Armstrong quota entry as the prototype to use for the G. Freeman account. Now, if we check on G. Freeman's quota settings, we can see that the quota settings for K. Armstrong have been copied to G. Freeman.